Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome into episode 8 of Kayfabe Kouncil, the show where we review and critique news topics and segments in the world of professional wrestling. My name is PrettyTony, and alongside me is TFJ0ker. Joker, what's the crack?
Cracks 90 as always, PT as always. We had a decent week of wrestling, but more so we're coming into those nice summery months, so it's shorts wearing weather, PT. It's shorts wearing weather.
Oh, the wrestling, the outsides, the heat, it's all coming together now, right?
Yeah, it was such a nice day today, and I spent every single waking minute inside playing video games, so
I mean, that's kind of what you do in the summer, right? You make sure you kind of get up. You maybe have a little tea or some coffee, right? You look at the day, open the blinds. Ooh, it's a little sunshine outside. Time for some video games.
yeah. Well, I mean, I got my exercise in. I went for a walk. I got myself all nice and sweaty. Did a wee bit of a power walk and stuff. Trying to get into some sort of shape that isn't rotund round. And then I came back, played some video games, and had my shower, then played video games all day. So yeah, it was a very good day to cap off a very good week, and hopefully the weather maintains like this and does not, unfortunately, threaten to turn into really, really scorching hot weather the next few days.
Yeah, it's been hot by me as well. I think the notion of as long as it kind of stays even keel, if it's gonna be hot, kind of just stay around the same thing. It's rough when the temperature either drops a bunch or goes up a bunch relative. So those steady inclines or downclines is kind of what we want as opposed to just jumping all over the place.
I don't mind if things get cold because I can add layers on, right? But there's only so many layers you can take off before you're not allowed in public spaces. So I'm at the bare minimum because I got that bulk. So I don't like to take my shirt off, and shorts is about as naked as it gets out in the public spaces. So I run around in a hoodie even in the hot weather. So if it's super super hot, you won't catch me outside, but I will have several fans pointed at me at all times.
Fair enough. Yeah, it's been like I said, it's been a hot one, and it's only gonna heat up more. Some more wrestling coming our way.
Oh yeah.
All right. As a reminder, you can find us in video form at youtube.com/kayfabekouncil and in audio form wherever you get your podcasts from. On this week's episode, we look at Liv Morgan and Austin Theory win big at Money in the Bank, and we take a look at the AEW Tag Team Division. Coming up first, Liv Morgan and Austin Theory win big at Money in the Bank. So we saw this week starting off hot with the WWE Money in the Bank pay-per-view in Las Vegas this past weekend, which the outcome, we ended up seeing Liv Morgan win the Money in the Bank briefcase and subsequently cash it in to defeat Ronda Rousey and become the new SmackDown Women's Champion. And then we saw in the main event, Austin Theory ended up coming victorious, climbing the ladder and taking the Money in the Bank briefcase. So, Joker, let me throw it over to you. What were your initial thoughts coming out of the pay-per-view?
Um, Overall, it wasn't terrible. A couple of things that I wanted to happen did happen. A couple of things that happened that I was like, okay, I'm not mad. And one overall thing that happened that I was like, now we've got to deal with terrible booking for the next 6 to 8 months. So, yay. Um,
Isn't terrible booking a year-round problem though?
you said it, not me. Okay, you said that one.
Fair
That's
enough.
that's just, y'all heard that quote PT on that. But yeah, no, I completely agree. But this is like forced bad booking where it's like, oh, we've got this sort of Damocles hanging over the championships, and unfortunately, this year for me, it's like you could only really give it to a big name to sort of like add to the threat that it might be cashed in. Like we said, like we were saying in the predictions, Seth Rollins would be a good idea, because he is a big threat. He would have been two-time Mr. Money in the Bank. That would have been super good. You could have given it the big Drew, Shamo, whoever else you wanted. And you could have had this legit sword of Damocles hanging over the head of Roman Reigns that you're like, oh, the threat is always there. But now you've got A-Town down holding onto the briefcase, and he's about as threatening as a wet paper towel. So
Yeah, I mean, both Money in the Bank victories ended up getting a large reaction from the crowd, which is good. I mean, whether it's a positive or negative, excuse me, whether it's a positive or negative, it's definitely a reaction is what you want. Obviously, Liv being a bit more of a fan favorite, huge pop coming out of the night, as well as Austin Theory taking away the Money in the Bank briefcase, a little bit more booze and jeers type of thing. I will give the Fed credit that we're looking to build new stars. So it goes back to our prediction video where we ended up thinking about, well, there's some folks that have had the briefcase before and there's some folks that have not had the briefcase before. And I think the internet wrestling community has been banging on, especially in the last 5 to 6 years, especially about we're not building new stars and we want some of our fan favorites and we want some people to get more recognition and become more popular and have an opportunity. And what we've seen specifically basically falls under two categories. The first being we sort of go and rest on our laurels of who's going to be booked to have a push. And we see it with the likes of the Charlotte Flairs or the Becky Lynches or the Seth Rollins or the Roman Reigns, kind of those established folks that now we know can, if we're in a lull of booking or a lull in the time of year, we can just slap them in a storyline or put a belt on them and we're fine. The second notion that usually falls on, all right, well, now we're going to bring back somebody from the past. And more specifically, in recent times, Goldberg has fallen into that category of we need some ratings quick, just get Goldberg to make an appearance. So outside of those two pieces about kind of resting on your laurels of having used the folks that we've used so many times before, I'm giving them credit that, all right, well, we look at Liv. She's been pushed a little bit more in the past 3 to 4 months. Okay, cool. Let's go ahead and put the briefcase on her. Same thing with Austin Theory. And we've seen it a little bit more specifically with him being pushed more recently with the US Championship, being in segments with Vince, specifically leading into and then at WrestleMania. So I will give them credit. Let's build a new star. You have nothing to lose. If they quote unquote fail, which they maybe don't win the championship, which in Liv's case she did, or they're just maybe not doing ratings, however you want to quantify that, you throw the briefcase on somebody else then, if that's the case. Or they have an opportunity to be successful and maybe win a championship. Again, you have nothing to lose. Just pull the trigger. If it works, it works. And if it doesn't, then you go back to one of those two categories I mentioned before.
Yeah, I feel like the women's division in WWE has the catalysts in place to inject some new life into the division, and with the acceleration with Liv, I feel like has come across as a result of several extraneous factors, notwithstanding her own personal growth and her work. Um, the leaving of a few key stars, the injuries of a few key stars, are necessitating these building of new stars in both the men's and women's division. I feel like personally, the men's side of thing has a lot more star power, regardless. You've got the likes of Sheamus, you've got the likes of Drew, you've got the likes of Seth, Roman, who's absentee at the minute, Brock, who's is equal on the absenteeism, and then you've got you're bringing through your people like the Madcap Moss. You're bringing back in Corbin. You have the Bobby Lashley stood there. He's a credible threat at all points in time, much like everybody else. But in the women's division, you have Ronda Rousey, Becky Lynch, Asuka, and Bianca Belair. Because at the minute, there's a couple of individuals who are out injured. We spoke at length before, both on and off recording, about Rhea Ripley. Unfortunately, she is currently out injured. Best wishes to her. And the former tag team partner of Liv Morgan. I was very skeptical personally about Liv getting the chance because over the last few years there have been stop-start pushes for her, and she has always been a favorite because she's very quick, she's very agile, she's very good at cutting a decent promo. Um, she's just an all-around star power kind of girl, and I really do enjoy. I really did enjoy seeing her in the Riot Squad when that was a thing. I like to see her whenever she was doing her solo run, and then every time we would get our hopes up that there'd be something for Liv Morgan, it would be taken away from us. And I feel like that is the main reason why you saw an awful lot of fanaticism, and cheers, and a lot of really big natural "you deserve it" chants, because she has put in the work and she has done this thing, and she is finally being given the credit of both the Money in the Bank and the victory over an injured Ronda Rousey. And this is the thing that I really like about the Money in the Bank um, stipulation, is the fact that no matter what happens, whoever gets cashed in on can remain strong given decent booking, because the person coming in is an opportunist. And whenever it's been for the past, in 2020, it was Asuka that won, didn't have to cash in because she just got given the belt. 2021, it was Nikki ASH cashed in the same night and she won. She lost pretty recently after, she lost after that, didn't she? She didn't hold on to the Smack. I think it was the SmackDown's title for her as well. It might have been Raw, but whatever. It doesn't matter. She didn't hold it for very long. And now it's Liv Morgan cashing in night of. They seem to be. I really don't want it to happen. It's just a pessimist in me. Like they seem to be pushing her really quickly, and all female stars, like whenever they get the Money in the Bank, to immediately get the title, and then depending on who it is, see how long we can last with the title.
Yes, the more recent booking of the women's Money in the Bank has been, yeah, we are going to have them win, because if I'm not mistaken, the women's is like 100%
Yep,
successful cash
still
in
is. Yeah,
rate. So I believe we can look at the statistics and definitely let me know down in the comments that outside of Carmella, who ended up holding on to the briefcase for a while and then basically cashed in on Charlotte after WrestleMania, the subsequent cash-ins have been either night of or basically a short turnaround and ended up winning the championship. And to your point, it's been all right, we're going to see how this goes kind of thing and have it play out sort of. So they haven't had a huge reign subsequently because of the briefcase.
yeah. You've had to have the big name come in after that and take it, like the Charlotte Flair, like the Becky Lynch. Come in and take that off them, because that the title was maybe previously held by somebody who they couldn't beat.
Yeah, so to have the cash in be on Ronda, which was there was conjecture whether it was a babyface thing to do, because after her hard fought matchup with Natalia, she appeared to have a bum leg, a bad wheel, and then sort of be easy picking for Liv. But honestly, it didn't hurt Ronda in terms. It did more for Liv than it ever would have hurt Ronda for sure. and we see her return and have a match on SmackDown anyway, so it's all gravy.
Yep.
But that notwithstanding, to your earlier point about there is more development and growth in the men's Money in the Bank ladder match, as we've seen in the participants, and you ended up reeling them off, and we have more contenders and development for them and growth in characters for them than we've seen in the women's division. And I think it's, notwithstanding and taking nothing away from Liv, maybe because some folks are not there or some folks were injured, she was definitely a good choice of all the folks involved. But I would definitely like to see, and it goes back to our discussion a couple episodes ago about the AEW women's division. Succinctly, we want better storylines and more pushes for folks all around so we can have a stronger division and an overall better show. But I would like to see them have a little bit more depth and maybe not concentrate on one or two folks at a time and maybe spread it around a little bit. So then we can have maybe 7 women in a ladder match where you're like, you know what? Any one of these 7 women can do it, as opposed to, I really think it's going to be this person or this person.
Yeah, I feel like the real thing that we had a problem with last week was picking a women's Money in the Bank winner, and we both kind of lent the fact that we really want to see Bailey back and her just to become that sort of Miss Money in the Bank surprise entrant and win it and all that. You have a few stars, like you have 3 to 4 big names in the women's division who are credible threats because of the bad booking that has surrounded the rest of the division. You have your Natalias, who she refers to herself as the boat. Like, okay, cool, you're calling yourself the best of all time. It's not an acronym you want to be using, Bodie McBoatface. Like, legitimately, that is the name of a boat in the UK. It was a poll given to the public, and they voted Bodie McBoatface. And every time she says, I am the boat, that's what I think of.
It's a
So
good
please,
name. I like the name.
it really,
It's a
it's
good name.
just, it's just one of those things. And then you have a legitimate MMA fighter in Shayna Baszler, who a few years ago was in Hell in the Cell, absolutely murked the entire women's division, and then was summarily just shifted into the lower mid card of that whole scene. Um, I would love to see the title on Shayna because the stuff that she did in NXT was amazing. Like she was a great women's champion in NXT, and I would love to see the Queen of Spades come back and just murk
Dominate.
everybody else.
Yeah.
Yeah, like just have that absolute monster come back because you can put her as a credible threat to everyone else. Like you've got this Ronda Rousey, sure, but your real Ronda Rousey character is Shayna Baszler. Just put her in, give her the title. You know, put her on a trajectory with Liv, please, or Bianca because you know they were both in NXT. They had a really good sequence of events in NXT as well. Um, like Rhea Ripley going out is unfortunate. She's another credible threat. But I'm sure like Shotzi has her fans. I'm not one of them. I not really. She hasn't clicked for me. Ali is sort of a new character. I haven't really clicked with that either. Raquel, it's Raquel Rodriguez. That's what she's called now, right?
Yeah.
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 She just smiles too much. Like legitimately, even baby faces do not smile this much. Her whole shtick is she smiles.
I
Like
know, and
she it
that's
creeps
her
me out.
character.
Yeah,
At the moment, her character is she's the wrestler that smiles.
yeah, and that is terrible. Like you had one good match with Ronda Rousey, and I've seen you smile more than I've seen you do anything, and that's the only thing I remember about you. Stop it, please. Just get her something else, and then you can build her up to be a credible threat because she is a credible threat if you give her the time of day. So you have all of these potential individuals in that division, but you don't want to give them the time of day because when they get themselves over, you kind of keep them down. Like Shayna tried to do, she got herself over big style by being just a legit badass. Raquel probably could have done exactly the same. Shotzi had the makings to some of her fans with the tank and the helmet and her whole look. It was taken away from her. It's like, well, unfortunately, I hate to tell you, is that was always going to happen. Like NXT is a different breed. Like even the Cody Vader's gone. If Cody can't have nice things, Shotzi ain't having nice things. Okay. So it's one of those things that you kind of got to look out for. Do you have more than what your gimmick is? And a couple of individuals don't.
Yeah, it's one of those things where we're trying to figure out, let's give them just something right now, and then we'll kind of figure out and pass it as a go. But at least the notion of having, let's kind of start off strong, take more than a day to write the character, write the notion, work with the individual to kind of see. And again, we want more for these characters, more for these wrestlers, more for the storyline. But I will say this, at least when it comes to the women's Money in the Bank ladder match, we got to have a little bit of a storyline build toward it and kind of see all the characters kind of come into the match. Austin Theory ended up very last minute just being thrown into the match, a la here's a Vince Russo swerve.
Like I woke up. Well, obviously, the match was on a Saturday night for me. I woke up and I foolishly went on to Twitter first thing, and before my brain could comprehend that I'd done something really stupid, I just saw Theory was trending, and I was like, oh, he made his way into the Money in the Bank ladder match, didn't he? And I closed Twitter. I didn't think anything of it, and then everybody was in the ring, and it was about to start. I was like, fuck, I was worried about nothing, and then the postman comes out, and you're just like, this is Theory in it. This is Theory. Like, I'm gonna see your seven and reach, and I'm just like, no, don't do it. And yeah, he and you saw everyone's face in the ring. Like, obviously they were told to look annoyed, but I feel like some of them legitimately were annoyed. Like, why is this kid getting an entry to this match when he lost earlier on this week and we all had to qualify?
I
Like,
would say that there was at least a couple of the guys that were kind of upset or pissed off. Yeah.
Sami Zayn looked livid.
Yeah.
He looked livid, but then again, Sami Zayn is one of the best character actor workers in the WWE at the minute. So he's just amazing. And to be fair, I probably wouldn't have minded Sami Zayn winning the Money in the Bank briefcase. Uh, but yeah, it's one of those things that some of them probably were shoot pissed. Like, they were
Well,
annoyed.
if you're a betting person, you would have lost because if I'm not mistaken, I'm not a gambler and I don't condone it. Definitely, it's one of those things. But man,
I'm the
they was
same.
not an entrant, and they pulled, like I said, the little bit of a Vince Russo swerve to it, and you ended up seeing it was a strong matchup for sure, but I think the notion of having him added, again, you saw a little bit of the frustration from the guys in the ring and the folks in the crowd that were kind of like a little bit confused and kind of tight, but the match ended up coming together, which was fine. But you getting a little bit of that Roman Reigns heat. Like it makes me think of
Yeah.
that one Royal Rumble where he started off the pay-per-view with losing the championship match, and then look who comes out at the end of the Royal Rumble match. Who
Number
is it?
30 himself.
Royal Rumble probable winner, I think, if I'm not mistaken, the big dog himself, Roman Reigns. So, man, I'm not trying to steal Cameron Grimes' thunder, but brother, to the moon being pushed.
Yeah, like so back in that time of before the needle mover, before the head of the table, before anyone was being asked to acknowledge the big dog, don't call me Joe Anoa'i, Roman Reigns, big man, king of the world, goat man, dude. You just kind of watch The Rock look at everybody holding up Roman's hand, going, "Why is everybody booing me? I'm The Rock." So he definitely does have this thing where if Theory gets and it was good because whenever we saw him with Cena just blanked him and walked off. So Cena got mad credibility back in pretty much everybody's eyes whenever he did that. But I don't think it would end any different to that sort of interaction where you would have somebody trying to endorse him and everybody just booing. But the main problem I have is I don't really I don't know how much of the booing was piped in because it felt to me that a lot of the reaction to him was a groaning indifference. Like, why is this guy being force fed down our throats? We already told you how we felt with that, with, like you said, Roman Reigns being shoved down our throats. Like, Roman's heel work, his heel character work in recent years, has made him a much beloved star because he's doing really well. He's an arrogant heel, and that is perfect for him.
And I think because he
Um,
comes off a little bit more genuine and natural.
yes, exactly. But the Theory character is trying to play this arrogant heel, and I feel like I said this before, is like he's playing it, but it's not hitting for me. Like, sure, you're taking all your selfies, you're Prince Pretty, dude. Like, that's who you are right now. You're Prince Pretty 2.0, and there's nothing taken away from him, but can you do something else? Because you hanging around titles is not going to do you any good when you have these people like Bobby Lashley. You have Roman Reigns, who does not look like he's going to be losing that title anytime soon. So why give it to somebody like Theory, who you're trying to push? I mean, it makes it look like you're going to give it to Theory over Roman at some point down the line. And that honestly scares me because if you do that, you're not listening to people. And I know that they don't ever listen to people. Like, see the Daniel Bryan sort of build and snubbing of him and the Roman Reigns and John Cena's and the Goldberg that you mentioned earlier on. All that stuff comes through. They do what they think is best for business, and that is perfectly fine. The best way to get over Theory is let Theory do something different because this ain't it. At least not for me personally. I'm a heel guy. I love my heel characters because when they're firing on all cylinders, they make you groan, they make you annoyed, they get the boos. This guy just kind of makes me go, fast forward. I'm bored. Like, he bores me. And that's usually reserved for the really steel baby faces.
It goes back to our previous notion of I do appreciate them. All right, let's try to build a new star. And we're seeing that wholeheartedly with Theory. We've seen him in segments with Vince McMahon, and then obviously having the connection with him at WrestleMania, winning the United States Championship, now with winning the Money in the Bank briefcase. So I'm a bit conflicted in the sense that I do appreciate them. We're gonna build something new. Let's pull the trigger, go with some fresh kind of faces, fresh stars. But is it too much too soon? Is it too soon for Austin Theory? In the point of we've seen in the past, again, 4 or 5 months, all this push to the moon success. Now he has the briefcase. Is it, are we going to see him beat Roman for the championship and be the guy? Is it something that, do we see down the line someone takes it off of him? I don't know. What are your thoughts?
In my opinion, it's way too soon for him. Way too soon. Because you do have this current line of champion with Roman Reigns. The Money in the Bank briefcase was always going to end up on somebody who was never going to immediately cash in anyway. But for somebody like Theory, you need to not only have him win, but you need to have him win and then cash in. He is the type of character and the type of person and his place on the grand scheme of things. In my opinion, you need to get him to win, and then you need to have him cash in immediately. Obviously, Roman wasn't there, so he couldn't do that. So you need to have him cash in and take this momentum, and then then yes, you have him as this like Miz 2.0 sort of thing going on, where he's running, ducking, dodging fights, not wanting to do them like he was doing. He was getting other people to fight for him and stuff. Like he was doing it many weeks ago. So they've for me they've dropped the ball. I saw what they were doing and and in my opinion what they should have done with it. But if you're going to have him hold on to it, why not give it to Sami Zayn? Because then you have Sami Zayn holding it for the tribal chief, the head of the table, the needle mover, the goat, etc. All his names. Um, you have him hold on to it because he said, "Well, I'm going to sit on it." And then you expand the storyline with the bloodline even more. You keep that going. That's injected fresh blood into there. And then you have him in a storyline where, just like Otis, he loses the briefcase in a stipulation against Theory. New
Yeah,
blood coming in, and then he cashes in on Roman. Like you have Sammy lose it at the start of a pay per view, and then he cashes in at the end of a really bad pay per view where the Usos lose, and then you have Roman lose one of his to a cash in. Like how much better does that sound?
I'm in agreement with you that there's more natural storytelling with other folks that were in the Money in the Bank ladder match for them to have won. You mentioned Sammy, of course, and with that whole bloodline connection. Seth harking on, I've got Roman's number, things like that. Drew with I'm going to cash in at Clash at the Castle, things of that nature. So there's more, it felt more comfortable or more natural for it to kind of go with some of those pieces. But, I'm of opinion that guys like Drew, they don't need the briefcase. They can just win matches and call their shot. Guys like Seth can win matches and call their shot. So to have folks like maybe like a Sammy or somebody else, it would mean more to them because I feel like they would need sort of that push. But it's one of those things where I feel like it could hurt Theory a little bit more to be pushed so soon than it can for him to gain the acceptance or gain the popularity with having the success so fast and having the briefcase, as opposed to a little bit more of a natural push and a natural growth. But it feels like so much so fast.
So I am completely agreeing on that regard, and I do have and in fact we do have a rather apt comparison, because one of the last individuals that was chosen as Vince McMahon's chosen ones was Drew McIntyre. Drew McIntyre was getting pushed to the moon. He won the Intercontinental title, if I'm not mistaken. He won so much. And then in an interview, he said himself he rested on his laurels, fell tumbling down all the way into 3MB. Then he left the company, found himself, got jacked, came back, and now he came back as the Scottish psychopath into NXT. Dolph Ziggler brought him up onto the main roster. And now he's the Scottish warrior bending really terrible swords by smacking them against ring ropes. It was fun the first time he did it at WrestleMania, but this time, whenever I saw the fact that they were trying to cover up the fact that he bent this dollar store sword, I was like, oh, just get rid of the sword, please. So that is the way that Theory can end up. He can get to being a WWE title holder, not at 24. It's way too soon for him because they're forcing a character on him that sucks. He's not getting the sort of hatred that a heel would get. He's just getting sort of, dude, can you just go and do something else and stop bothering us? It's
So
like that
mo-
annoying fly in the room.
so more of that X-Pac go away heat as opposed to, oh
Yeah.
man, I don't want to see this guy, as opposed to like, boo, you're a bad guy.
Yeah, like that's what it's like for me because he's not a bad guy, he's just annoying. And he's not even Miz levels of annoying because I love the Miz. The Miz is great. He's one of the best heels in the game because he is just a smug a-hole. Like I was gonna add some more words in there, but they were all swear words. So I'm just gonna keep it PG and just be like, he's an a-hole, but he's a heel. Like the reaction, if you remember, whenever he cashed in on or whenever he won against John Cena, of Miz Girl in the stands, of her just really scarred. He was like, can't believe he won. Nobody would give that to Theory because we're like, oh, fine, boo, can't believe this is happening. This is like that's the worst thing anyone can get because you think you're over as a bad guy. It's like no, you're just the only thing that you're going to be good for is whenever the baby face that comes in and beats you is going to be propelled so far beyond you that you're no longer relevant because we don't care about you anymore. And that's what's dangerous at 24 years of age. He is in danger of being completely left behind once he gets beaten.
Yeah, it's a slippery slope that we've seen happen to other folks in the past. But if we're
And
thinking,
just as a clarification, sorry, once he gets beaten at the top, because I know he did get beaten with the US title and then he got injected into this, but I mean once he's at the top and he gets beaten, the babyface who beats him is going to be the one who kicks him all the way back down. Sorry, just had to clarify.
yeah, no worries. So we're in agreement that we're in favor of building new stars, but the slippery slope and the dangerous trajectory that could happen with Austin Theory here having so much too soon, we think about, well, if it's not him, who else could it be? We've seen folks that have been pushed as of late, your Bobby Lashley's, your Matt Riddles, the tag team of Montez Ford and Angelo Dawkins. We've seen on the women's side more recently Lacey Evans and Shotzi being pushed. So if we're thinking about maybe if it's not Austin Theory and or Liv, do any of those other folks seem like maybe an acceptable replacement for those folks instead?
For me, the women's winner in Liv was fine. Her cashing in, like I said, big fan of Liv. Really excited to see how far she goes. Hopefully, it's not going to be like she's had an awful lot of good runs, and if you paid attention to her Twitter, she's peak AJ Lee with the Divas title. She's tucking it in and offering it food and stuff like AJ Lee did all them many years ago. She's an absolute delight with it. Um, so that's really good. Plus, she has dealt with some really terrible storylines, so I feel like she really does deserve it. Lacey Evans, no, not so much because let's face it, they don't really know what they're doing with her. She's babyface until this week, and now she's trying to force over a heel turn, which was awkward as heck. And Shotzi needs more time for me personally. Like I said, I haven't clicked with Shotzi. Wasn't a big fan. Not really. I wasn't a big fan of the fact that her and now Athena Ember Moon were broken up. And then wasn't a fan of the fact that her and Tegan Knox, I think, was her next partner. So I mean, she kept getting put into tag teams and then getting split up with them, and just as they were gaining traction. So that's really annoying. I feel like she needs more time, so that's fine. But the men's, uh, like I said, I probably this side of Money in the Bank probably would have preferred the briefcase to be on Sammy, if not be on Seth freaking Rollins. Bobby Lashley, I really want him to get back to the top position, but I need Roman to stop being the champion. Riddle probably needs some time away from the bloodline before he can get back into the thing, because that stuff is just too fresh for him, having lost Randy and lost a lot of matches to them. The Montez Ford Angelo Dawkins breakup of the Street Profits is happening. It's not happening like now, but it will happen. And I cannot wait to see both of these individuals excel. Like, everybody's like, "Oh, Montez Ford is so jacked and he's so agile," and 100% you're right. But Angelo Dawkins can go. He is no slouch, and I feel like in the last few weeks, Tez may even have been downplaying himself, while Angelo Dawkins has been, not so much upplaying, but just kind of getting himself more in the spotlight, especially with that trios match with him, Tez, and Bobby Lashley recently. So yeah, like, there's nobody in the men's that I can see that I would prefer other than Sammy. I just feel like the Theory push is a bit misguided.
I'm in agreement with you that of all the combatants in the women's Money in the Bank ladder match, I felt like Liv was the safer choice, as well as the feel good choice. So that I'm totally fine with. Oh, let's continue to push other people as well, for sure. And going back to our earlier point, storyline and from a building standpoint, the Sammys and the Seth felt more apropos, or it felt like it would have fit better. Uh, but the point is, I think for this men's cash in, it's tough because Roman's just gonna win, right? What's the next match? Rock or somebody at Mania type of thing, or you know, I think it's one of those where this cash in might end up being a wash. So whoever they put up against Roman is just going to lose anyway, in the sense, or that's the inclination that they're driving towards. Him not even sweating it type of thing, even from coming from another heel. So guys, like, I'm agreeing. Let's get Bobby Lashley a bit of a push for now, since Roman's untouchable. He has the U.S. Championship. Riddle's just come off of so much time butting up against the bloodline. Same thing with Montez Ford and Angelo Dawkins. They've come up so many times up against the bloodline in the last month to 2 months. So for now, we pulled, like I opened the segment, we pulled the trigger on Austin Theory, and let's run with it.
Yeah, but how far are they going to run? Like, it's just one of those things that we've got to wait and see. I don't personally, I don't like it, for the reasons I've already mentioned. And they're running before he can walk, and it's a little bit, in my opinion, misguided.
But it remains to be seen. We see congratulations to Liv Morgan and Austin Theory on their success this past week, and we will see how their storylines play out.
Congratulations to Liv Morgan, only from me, because Theory ruined that match.
All right, as we switch gears here, we're going to take a look at the AEW Tag Team Division. So, what sparked our notion of wanting to take a look at the AEW Tag Team Division on this past week's episode of Dynamite? We end up seeing, at the culmination of a match between Swerve in Our Glory and the Butcher and the Blade, we have Team Taz of Powerhouse Hobbs and Ricky Starks come out to jaw jack and cut a promo on Swerve in Our Glory. But who comes out is the Young Bucks. And in so many words, we're the best tag team. And for next week's episode of Dynamite, which is Fyter Fest Night 1, we're going to have a triple or nothing 3-way match for the AEW Tag Team Championships against the Young Bucks, the champions, Team Taz, and Swerve in Our Glory. So, in the pre-production meeting that we had before this episode, Joker was a little bit disappointed in how this all came together.
Yeah. A little bit disappointed is probably the nice way of saying it. And PT did kind of correct me because or at least try and bring me to my senses, because I was trying to go down a more convoluted storyline whenever I was complaining about the convoluted storyline about
Interim
the Mox
AEW,
Tanahashi
or
match. Yeah.
yes.
I just don't like the fact that it takes the champions to come down and insert themselves into what is effectively a mid-card currently rivalry. Something that has been cold for a week, because there was legitimately nothing last week between these teams, given blood and guts. And then all of a sudden there's no digital exclusive, there's no tweets, there's no nothing. And after this match where Swerve and Our Glory have won, fantastic for them, you have Powerhouse Hobbs coming down, and my absolute favorite man of the minute, Ricky Starks. Just whenever he gets on the mic, he sounds so freaking angry, and he just sells it. And you can tell that he sells it because anytime he does one of these impassioned promos, he brings himself to the brink of swearing, and then he catches himself. And it's funny because it was whenever they were up in the stands a few weeks ago, he did it, and Taz was on commentary, and he goes, "Watch it, Ricky." He just, that whole reaction. It's like, just watch your mouth, Ricky. I love Ricky Stark's promos. He's so good at it. And I really do like this sort of rivalry that's going on, and I'm glad they didn't let it cool off for too much longer. I don't like the fact that they're calling themselves the best tag team in the world, because they're not having a rivalry about that. They were literally just kind of, it was something about Keith not showing Ricky respect, or Ricky not liking him coming into the company, and then just sort of having this whole ambiguous fallout, and then a sort of pseudo friendly rivalry. And then Swerve comes in, and you're just like, okay, cool. Now we're just going to have a heated rivalry. Sweet. Now we're the best tag team in the world. Well, you're not. You're like you're ranked second in your division. When FTR is 7-star FTR, they're ranked number 1. So why are the champions coming down to the ring in the middle of this promo battle and injecting themselves into this stupid fight for the tag team title?
Yeah, it's
I'll
one of
tell you
those.
why. Because it's stupid.
It's one of those interesting things. Before I jump into my point, I do appreciate Ricky Starks channeling that 1997 Ric Flair, no F's given, fire me, Bischoff, fire me, passion. Yeah.
The wide eyes, the hair, looking down the camera, if he could get it any worse. Yeah.
Yeah. So I do appreciate he's given it socks 100%. But I'm in agreement with you that it does seem odd that the tag team champions themselves are like, all right, well, you guys essentially are good tag teams. Team Taz is ranked number 2, and Swerve in Our Glory is ranked number 3 in terms of the tag team rankings. So we're saying, all right, well, let's go. 3-way match, triple or nothing on next week's episode. So it makes me feel as if we need a match, a good match for Fyter Fest Night 1 next week. Boom, tag team championship match for the titles, which part of our argument or part of our conjecture before was knowing that the match itself is Young Bucks versus FTR winner take all, which would presumably happen at All Out, which is at the end of August, early September. So we need 2 months to get there. So you can't have the match now. So we need something in the interim. Boom. Let's have a 3-way match at the moment. But I'm in agreement. It does seem weird to have it positioned as the Bucks making the match as opposed to any of the other teams challenging.
Yeah, and the problem for me is that these three teams don't mesh. They do not, in my opinion, have a good way to mesh together and put on what we could expect to be a 5-star match with the Bucks involved. Because you have Keith Lee and Powerhouse Hobbs in there. And this is not me attacking them. This is me saying they're two big guys who are going to do big guy things. They're going to be absolutely murking each other. And then they can do some of the flippy stuff. They can do some of that athletic stuff because they're athletic big men. I love both Keith Lee and Powerhouse Hobbs. And when the day comes and they're both in that singles division, everybody best be on notice because they're coming for your titles. Like, I can't wait to see Powerhouse Hobbs as the AEW champ someday. It's going to happen. And I would love to see him versus Ricky Starks. So that's an aside. Anyway, you don't have somebody then that can match up on the Young Bucks side of things. Like, the Young Bucks will do really well with Ricky and Swerve, 100%. But then they're going to have to do some funky shenanigans to take down one of the big guys. And it's going to kind of be a bit disjointed, in my opinion, because some of their really good stuff has been in matches against FTR, who that have been heavy hitting, but also had those nice big spots, and even against the Lucha Bros, where some of their matches are just insane. I just feel like this 3-way match has a little bit of an X factor and not in a good way.
I'm trying to think of consistent tag teams as to why. Obviously, Team Taz is ranked number 2 and Swerve and Our Glory is ranked number 3. I'm trying to think of consistent tag teams that have been featured on television. Obviously, the Young Bucks, FTR, we know Team Taz and Swerve and Our Glory, but we're trying to think about, well, who else we got, and it's not in a disrespectful sense. We've seen the Best Friends now come back to TV, but we've seen Trent Beretta weave in and out with his old tag team partner, Rocky Romero, for that. We've seen, even though the Kings of the Black Throne, or the Malachi Black and Brody King tag team, we've seen them more apart and not sort of tag teaming together other than being in the trios match at the previous pay-per-view. We're trying to think about the Lucha Bros, right? But they've more been about they were in the Battle Royale, and then the Battle Royale as well for the interim World Heavyweight Championship match as well. Pentagon having a match with Roosh recently. Proud and Powerful have not been teaming, so things like that. Red Dragon's
Dark
out.
Order.
Yeah, Red Dragon's been out, so like we haven't had a ton of tag teams collectively that have been positioned high. Things like the Acclaimed, things like the Gun Club, obviously are tag teams, but they're not maybe positioned as high. Obviously, the Hardys are not together. We haven't seen the Varsity Blondes in a minute, so we're seeing the Butcher and the Blade come back into the fold, but we're not seeing a ton of tag teams together positioned high, other than maybe the folks that are involved in these matchups.
We have a lot of teams.
Yeah.
Like you legitimately ran through a fair few amount of teams there, and adding in Dark Order had 2 tag teams in Stu and Uno, the Smash Bros, and then you had
John Silver
3.
and Alex
They had
Reynolds.
3 because then Alan Angels was with Preston Vance as well. Yeah. And then, like you said, Silver and Reynolds. So they had 3 tag teams. Now they only have 1.
Right.
In Silver and Reynolds, and they don't even compete at the minute. Then you have Bear Country, who are competing with Leon Ruff in trios action recently. And then you have, like you said, the Acclaimed and the Ass Boys. So you have a lot of teams that are, like you said, very low down on this totem pole. And yeah, the Butcher and the Blade coming in. Private Party, there was another one that was the kind of missed that one. Like these teams have had injuries, Top Flight, and I'm just as they come to my head, I'm just remembering the other tag teams. Like, and this is the thing. Like, whenever we were talking about putting this together, the AEW Tag Team Division, in my head it was a joke because AEW is just a tag team company for the most part. Like, they have all the tag teams, and if they don't, then they make more tag teams. So that's just kind of what happens. But then you kind of look at it like this, and the Young Bucks are having to issue challenges. No, don't do that. Like the reason they're not fighting FTR is obviously, like you said, all in September. Cool. Plus, the FTR fighting them boys to Briscoes at Death
Death
Before
before
Dishonor.
dishonor.
Like, I mean, that's the real reason why they have to be on Fighter Fest is because the other champions, the ones who've been more prevalent, the Ring of Honor champs, um, and the IWGP and the
Triple
AAA
A.
tag team champions, they are currently doing a lot more work than every single tag team. So, um, once FTR become become Super Saiyan and carry 4 of the title belts, then it's going to be even more insane. Um, but like, it's just one of these things that I didn't like the fact that they were having to inject themselves into this story that didn't seem to be, and they sort of shoehorned the fact that Ricky and Powerhouse and Keith and Swerve couldn't beat Luchasaurus. I don't know why I just said Lucha, but Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy, they couldn't beat them, but the Young Bucks did. It's like, yeah, but legitimately, they should have beat Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy because that was the right time to do it. They just postponed it for a week because you were the guys that had to have the titles. Let's face it. Um,
Yeah, I'm in agreement that yeah, the Young Bucks should not be having to be made to make challenges teams. I do like the piece of the challenger challenging the champion and then either being the cowardly heel or the we're gonna guts up and like, you know what, you got it type of thing. So that story or that path resonates more with me. But the fact that, and taking away nothing against these two teams, the Team Taz and Swerve in Our Glory, but they've been sort of intertwined or in wrestling, they call it married to each other for months now. And we've seen it as far back as a month and change now at the three-way match with the aforementioned Jurassic Express. And they've been intertwined before that. So it's one of those where we just need the blow off, have a match between the two, and kind of let them sort of rivalry kind of dissipate. And then maybe just filter in the other teams. Like, again, that we mentioned, the Butcher and the Blade is back. Throw in Private Party. Have them fight, get a little bit of rub, get the showcase and show off your other tag teams so that we can feel like it's more than just FTR being shown prominently. Of course, we have the Young Bucks. We're seeing these two teams. We have a deep tag team division. Show me them more. Showcase them more.
yeah. And it was actually shown quite well on SmackDown recently. In fact, as recently as last night, when Gunther came out, and the rumors were abound that he was going to be doing an open challenge for the Intercontinental title, and he was just like, anyone who doesn't know who they're challenging is a fool. I was like, yeah, 100%. I completely agree. Like, if you don't know who you're challenging, then you're really stupid. And I really like that idea that he is not going to do an open challenge. And the same should be said that title holders are not the ones to be challenging for, picking their challengers, or by inserting themselves into other storylines. Because, like you said, if we have this blow off with just Team Taz and Swerve in Our Glory, we have Team Taz go over, and then we have the breakup of Swerve in Our Glory, and then we have them interfering in matches between the two because they've broken up, and now you have them pitting against each other, and you could have Swerve or Keith join Team Taz, and then you could have them play the long con of where it was like, well, we just kind of wanted to dissolve Team Taz, so we kind of infiltrated you, broke you guys apart, and then we're back to being Swerve in Our Glory. Like, that's super long term booking right there, but you don't need the Young Bucks in there. In fact, the Young Bucks kind of dissolves the fact that if it happens, it's probably going to be Team Taz taking the pin. Like, I can see Ricky taking the pin here, and that's the other problem. Like, who do you have taking the pin? Because it's clearly not the Bucks losing. Who out of the four individuals do you have taking the pin? It's such a hard call.
Yeah.
But you like
It's challenging in the sense that we know that the Bucks are going to come out victorious. Pretty clear indication there. And again, I think it goes back to my point of we're going to wait on the FTR Bucks match for the winner take all, but we need something now because we got Fyter Fest coming up. Cool. The Young Bucks can do a banger. Let's put it in here. So I think it's more, I'm almost slightly disappointed that it's more of a piece of convenience than it is to, we're building up, and the execution of the story or how they positioned it was lackluster for me. But yeah, it's one of those where, all right, well, in that case, then since we know the Bucks are winning, does a Ricky or a Swerve Strickland take the pin to potentially save the big beefy boys of Keith Lee and Powerhouse Hobbs the notion of taking the pin or the submission? So I don't know. It's a tough one to call for sure.
yeah, it's kind of like, why are we putting them into this whenever none of the options for the pin are good? Like, the only good option is really for the Bucks to lose, because they've inserted themselves into this story that needs a definitive win. Otherwise, the other team is going to have the leg up, and it's not going to be resolved. So you're kind of scuppering the story there, Bucks. I would have liked to have seen maybe a week or two ago Andrade and Roosh maybe uh, attack the Bucks, um, and set up a possible tag match there for the titles, just because. Like, Andrade is not doing anything right now. Roosh recently had his AEW debut, his debut match rather. So I mean, that wouldn't have been terrible. You could have added in, really, the possibilities are endless. If you had started 2 weeks ago and picked any tag team to attack the Bucks or have the Bucks be annoyed at this other tag team. But they kind of shoehorned in the fact that we're the best tag team in AEW, and then out come the Bucks. They shoehorned it in. It was kind of whatever. Yeah, I'm not a fan of this, but I see what the reasoning behind it is. But again, with the theory stuff, just because I know what they're trying to do, kind of just has me whatever about it. This could be a good match if I was more interested in it. I could be looking forward to this match if it was given the proper build. But this is not the proper build.
Yeah. As an aside to that as well, I was okay with the FTR basically not being featured this week, pretty much, on Dynamite and or Rampage, because we don't want to overexpose, because again, they've been getting a lot of coverage and have been prominent on TV for sure. But them with the Ring of Honor pay-per-view, Death Before Dishonor, I'm okay with the simpler build of FTR saying, hey, Briscoes, you want to go one more time? And then the Briscoes coming back and saying, yep. So we're having FTR Briscoes 2. The simple build was actually okay, and I felt okay with it again with it coming up with the Ring of Honor pay-per-view than I was with the quote-unquote quick build of the AEW Championship match. For whatever reason, it
Yeah,
felt better.
yeah, definitely. I think it may have had something to do with the fact that FTR Briscoes one was a blimmin' great match. Like, I can't say that I was ever a big fan of Ring of Honor. I never watched that much Ring of Honor, but whenever that pay per view was on, I watched every single match. And there was a few on that card that really impressed me. And the FTR Briscoes was a big match that impressed me. So I can't wait for Death Before Dishonor because that's going to be great. And yeah, like you said, the quick build for that was because there's history there. There's a pay per view for the Ring of Honor coming up. So we did it last time at the last Ring of Honor pay per view. Let's do it again this time. Just run it back. And the Briscoes come back saying, "Yeah, hell yeah, dog! Like let's get it done." And it's a really good way to do a quick build if you have the champions uh, try and just the babyface champions offer up a challenge to a previous competitor who they haven't faced since winning the titles from them. Like they've been Ring of Honor champions since beating the Briscoes for these titles, and they haven't really fought any other Ring of Honor tag teams.
So maybe the notion of, even though it was essential for argumentative sakes, it was the same thing. The champions, the Ring of Honor champions FTR challenged the Briscoes. The AEW champions challenged the two teams of Team Taz and Swerve in Our Glory. But maybe because of the history between FTR and the Briscoes, we were more invested. Would you say that's fair?
I would say it's slightly more accurate. It's also the fact that the Briscoes were not in a storyline with another team. The Briscoes were a Ring of Honor tag team that the tag team titles have to be defended on the pay per view. Okay, this is the big point. It's a Ring of Honor pay per view. The Ring of Honor tag team titles have to be defended on that pay per view. Let's face it. There's not enough Ring of Honor right now. It would make sense for those titles to be defended on that pay per view. So who better to fight than the guys who previously fought? Because Ring of Honor hasn't really been working as much recently. So there's no new teams. We can't really do a storyline. Let's just bring in the previous contenders. It's quick, it's dirty, it's easy because there's no convolution. But for the AEW titles, you have this story over here, and here's the title holders. Then this story's going off, and the title holders are like, "Well, I'm gonna get rid of my hands. It just looked weird." So like the title holders are just kind of like, "Well, we're not doing anything, so let's just go over here and annoy these guys because they're doing something." And I didn't like what they said, so now we're going to say we're the best because we're holding the titles. Like, well, duh. I mean, it probably would have made sense for you to do something that was a little more convoluted. Like, okay, cool. You guys need to have a tag match, a three-way tag match to qualify to fight us ahead of FTR because FTR are all fighting the Briscoes because they don't think that they think that they're too good to fight us, right? So you have them maybe in a three-way with the Butcher and the Blade. You have Swerve and Our Glory, and you have Team Taz. Like I know this is convoluted, and this is why you were saying to me, like this is a little bit convoluted, even though you were saying you didn't like it. It's like yes, because this makes more sense. It, if you add in the fact that these guys have to qualify ahead of FTR, it just means that then they can go on the Fighter Fest, and this is why you should have done it 2 weeks ago, not this week. Then they can go on to Fighter Fest and fight
The
um,
Bucks.
the Bucks. Like it just makes more sense for the Bucks to instigate a challenge fight and then for them to take advantage of weakened challengers the next week than for them to purposefully add themselves into a triple threat match.
I'm always in agreement that a simpler build is probably the safest and kind of more easier to understand and be engaged with avenue. But yeah, it's one of those, again, even though we've essentially said the Ring of Honor match now and then the AEW tag match is essentially, hey, the champ's calling out the challengers and type of thing, even though it's positioned slightly different, it's essentially the same thing. But notwithstanding, again, we're just more invested in the Ring of Honor storyline and the match than we are the piece. And again, we'll add the extra caveat. Again, we have a big show coming up, so we need a match, and
Mm.
this is what each show decided to go with. But yeah, we just, for whatever reason, maybe again because it's because of the Team Taz and Swerve in Our Glory kind of mini feud that they have going on, it felt like the match should have been for them as opposed to thrown into Bucks. But hey, we got a show coming up, brother. We need a good match, so let's do it.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the last things I'll say on it is whenever I complained about the AEW Women's Division, I said that we need to get the title off Rosa and onto Tony Storm so she can kickstart new stories and have that title reach relevancy. They didn't do that, and now they're starting tag teams. So, way to go. You're continuing to destroy your division. Good job there, TK. So, what they really should have done with the AEW tag titles here as well is when they took them off the boy and his dinosaur, Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy, that should have been the catalyst for the Bucks to be like, we're the best tag team in the world again, and we're gonna start trying to uh, prove our dominance over the rest of the division and start the storyline off there. But they didn't. They missed the freaking boat again. So now they're having to create this storyline with, like we said, that all these tag teams are out there just not doing an awful lot because there's some higher profile ones that are injured. So this is where you start having tournaments, or like AEW really good at their tournaments. Like we've seen what they can do with these sort of tournaments with the AEW interim one, or for the All Oceans Irish Sea English Channel one. Like, why not just put yourself into a situation where the Bucks lead this division and steer things away from FTR, which then annoys FTR enough to instigate them into putting it all on the line, all or nothing, three against one, belt sort of situation, winner takes all, big blow off match, and a few at
All out.
all in, all out at in September. Like, this could have been weeks in the making, and instead it's one throwaway promo on a Dynamite that sucked.
Yeah, it's a bit of a confusing one, but much like the AEW Women's Division, and for the most part, we want better storylines. We want folks to get a chance and type of thing, and maybe just a little bit cleaner execution of how we're executing these storylines.
Yeah.
But those are our thoughts on the AEW Tag Team Division. Definitely let us know your thoughts in the comments down below on YouTube as well as on Instagram and Twitter. All right, time once again for our quick hits. For those just joining us, quick hits are little segments that we enjoyed throughout the week, or that also what you call Pop the Boys segments that we wanted to share with you here. So I'll start us off here. I have two this week. The first one, you may have seen this shared on Twitter on a digital, but Matt Menard's post Blood and Guts promo. I mean, man alive. I won't spoil it because I can't really do it a ton of justice. It's about 3 minutes long, but man, when you give that a watch, and I was just getting goosebumps watching that. When you talk about the passion, the vitriol, the realness, you got to see, forget about Daddy Magic for a second. You got to see Matt Menard, the person, come through in that. He's got blood all over his face. He's talking about, why is this match happening when we beat them in Anarchy in the arena? He's talking about we took the privilege away from Eddie submitting Chris, yeah, even though he got the victory. He goes into, I can't believe I'm doing this, but I need to work. I missed my son's first steps. And he ends it with, you want to make big money, you got to do big boy ish. And whew, hot dang, I was like, this guy, getting goosebumps just kind of talking about it again. I can feel it kind of running up my arms, but one hell of a promo.
It was super good. I watched a little snippet of it, and whenever you linked it to me, it was the full thing. And I hadn't watched the full thing, and yeah, like goosebumps. I was enthralled, legitimately by. It was like a 6 minute video of him and Cool Hand Ange, but like both promos back to back, haunting and amazing.
Yeah, just you always knew that 2.0 were really good talkers. You got to see a little bit of it in NXT, but now that they've come into prominence and being paired alongside and getting more TV time alongside Jericho and his faction, man, you can see them shine now
Yeah.
more so, and especially in this promo here. So if you have not
Long
gotten
story short, check out that promo.
yeah, likewise for sure. Again, I just mentioned a couple pieces, but watch it and feel that promo. And we're talking about, man, these guys are going to be definitely be pushed solely on the basis of that for sure.
Hmm.
And the second piece that I have here for my quick hits, there's an interesting cross section between pro wrestling fans and video game fans. And
Hmm.
Matthew from Botchamania does a fantastic way of showcasing that on each episode of Botchamania. So, that notwithstanding, during the Jon Moxley and Brody King match for the interim AEW World Heavyweight Championship on this past episode of Dynamite, we saw a sign in the crowd that says, quote, "Please put Yoshi's cookie on the Switch." And I absolutely love when I get to see video game signs and people make references at wrestling shows, being obviously a wrestling fan for the purposes of the show and being a huge video game fan myself. Very quickly, for those that aren't aware of Yoshi's Cookie, it was a tile match puzzle game originally released on the NES and Game Boy in 92, and then got a release on SNES in 93, was remade and ported to the GameCube, and then subsequently put on Wii U's Virtual Console, but has yet to be put on the Switch.
Yeah, I did not see this sign, but yeah, completely agree. Gotta love the tile match puzzle games. Why not?
And if you haven't got a chance already to subtly look into the crowd during more prominently now AEW shows, definitely, once again, Matthew from Botchamania does a fantastic piece of showcasing that. And there's quite a lot if you haven't been noticing. So it's one of those nice things where it's not intrusive. If you catch it, you catch it. And if you know the reference, you know the reference. But again, I do like the phenomenal cross section between pro wrestling fans and video game fans.
It is interesting.
So those were my two quick hits from this week. Joker, do you have any quick hits?
I as well have two this week. Some of the they're less so that made me burst out laughing or anything. Like an awful lot of my quick hits are what gets me to giggle, what gets me sort of popping really hard. Like I have a very high bar for what's going to pop me as well, because sometimes it'll get a chuckle, um, but it's not worth it. And on this one, only one of them got a chuckle out of me. The other one gave me goosebumps, much like the Matt Menard promo. It was Eddie Kingston's promo after his Konosuke Takeshita match on Rampage, which you should go watch that match. It was a really good match. It was definitely one of the more hard hitting matches, and Konosuke Takeshita is up and coming and amazing, and is definitely going to be big. But regardless, it was to do with how Eddie was really pissed at Jericho making a liar out of him and how he's going to spill all his blood at Fighter Fest, and how like you got to watch the promo because again I cannot do it justice, but the very vibe of this promo was Jake Roberts biblical testimony promos
Mm.
from back in the day, where he wasn't his normal "I'm going to murder you because that's my that's the way I am, my life, and I'm screaming and I'm angry." He was calculated. He was deliberate, and at the very end, he just goes, "And the last drop of your blood," and he practically whispered, "It's like it's for my Ruby," obviously making reference to the fact that Tay Conti injured Ruby Soho earlier in the week, and like you did earlier on, I feel the goosebumps just thinking about the promo. It was just so good, and it just made me smile.
Yeah, that was another intense one too. I really like the connection you made with, because Eddie can say so much without saying a ton, but the
Mm.
passion and the intensity that he has in promos. But I do like the connection you made with the little bit of that slightly more soft spoken, not a big shouty, 80s promo, but it's like, that kind of calming, draw you in Jake Roberty style promo. I love the connection you
They
made.
sort of hush you and make you listen. Like, I love that style of promo. Like, I might not have been a big fan of the 80s wrestling, but like that promo style where they sort of just talk, and they don't scream and shout, they just talk. It brings you in, it sucks you in, and you're just like, wow. That's what Eddie did on this.
Fantastic promo. I loved it.
Yeah, 100%. And my second one, really quick one, is during the Tony Nese and Orange Cassidy match, also on Rampage. There was just a little bit of a comment whenever Tony Nese was in the ring, where big old Schiavone says, "You can't deny what Tony Nese brings to the ring," and without missing a beat, good old JR just says abs. Just that was it. Nothing else. Like, he had been giving it beans. Like, he had been really peeved and stuff throughout the night, saying how people were stupid, and for all the hate JR gets recently about him making missed calls, saying names incorrectly. Whenever Schiavone said, "You can't deny what he brings to the ring," JR, quick as a whip, abs, and that was it.
JR, you're not wrong.
He's not
Tony
wrong.
Tony Nese does bring abs.
Yeah, he
Um,
does.
to the point you just made.
It
I
was just
am
hilarious,
yeah,
man.
I'm intrigued by the more recent, the JR not no F's given, sort of dry wit kind of quick comments that he kind of comes out with, and this has sort of been indicative, and this is just puts it in there. He's just like quick as a whip it with a bum full of dynamite, just goes abs.
I mean, like, just to tack on to what you were mentioning, like the no F's given, was a match earlier on as well with Tiger Style and what's his name? I can't remember his name now. The foundation of Ring of Honor.
Jonathan
Ring of Honor,
Gresham.
Jonathan Gresham, where John Gresham just walks away from the ring, and JR literally calls him stupid. Like, he's just like, "Why are you doing something so stupid?" And I'm like, maybe it's a bit, JR. Don't get so angry at him. So
I
yeah,
need to
JR's.
know what's going
I
on,
need to
Tony at
know I need to know
Excalibur.
what he's doing.
So yeah, what's
But
going on
yeah,
here? So,
he's definitely that abs just got me though.
yeah, that's an interesting. He's certainly, now that he's not the primary play-by-play and a bit more of a color analyst, you can see a little bit more of his personality too. And I know that JR is going through a little bit of a rough patch with the uh, piece with the injury to his foot and the kind of
Yeah,
the
chemotherapy,
with
didn't he?
chemotherapy. Yeah, and he's hurting a little bit, but that notwithstanding, again, we're hoping all the best for you and a quicker recovery for you, JR. But the sort of notion that he can kind of step back and he's just like, yeah, I'm gonna call it like I see it, kind of little cowboy esque, coming out with a Smith and Wesson just shooting. So,
Yep, it was great.
but I absolutely love that. So actually, great observation, good call on that. So those were our quick hits for this week. If you have some quick hits, let us know definitely in the comment section down below or on Instagram or Twitter for sure. That's going to do it for this week's episode, and that about wraps it up. So, how was it for you, man? Because it felt fun. It was a good conversation.
Yeah, it was pretty good. There was a lot of stuff that again, whenever we pick subjects that kind of get us worked up and heated, you can definitely feel it. Um, Especially whenever we're talking about the storylines that we want to happen and not the ones that were force fed. So it was really good. It was fun.
Yeah, it's definitely a tough part when we know sort of things may happen down the line and we have to kind of wait for them. So it's not necessarily more of an impatience, but I think it's more about the execution of the story and how we get there is more that we want to see. Again, much like any other TV show that you watch, if you're engaged with a story and it's good storytelling, then yeah, you're definitely down for it and you enjoy it that much more.
Yep.
All right, so for TF Joker,
I'm going to go and watch that Eddie Kingston promo again.
and for me, Pretty Tony, we thank you for your time and letting us be a part of your day. And remember, be good to yourself, be good to each other, and we'll catch you next time. Peace.